It has happened again today. Another aerial object was shot down by U.S. warplanes amid bipartisan criticism about an absence of details regarding these incidents.
U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw.
A U.S. fighter jet shot down an unidentified object over Lake Huron near the Canadian border Sunday.
This brings the total to 4 in the last 8 days.
That all of these are not at all like the Chinese spy balloon, which was shot down a week ago over the Atlantic. These new items are apparently much smaller. One shot down today was described as octagonal in nature.
Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris.
But getting the debris is like finding a needle in a haystack. Each of these objects were apparently the size of a small car. And imagine trying to locate a burned-out, crashed car-sized object in a remote, icy and snow-filled area of Alaska, or an even more remote part of Canada's Yukon Territory, or in the icy waters of Lake Huron. It may take a while to locate the debris, never mind retrieve the wreckage and analyze it. In the meantime, the speculation and questions across North America are intensifying. Are we at the start of an alien UFO invasion? Well, here's what jumps out to me based on my experience years ago covering the Department of Defense and the U.S. military. According to Pentagon officials, the 3 objects shot down over Alaska, the Yukon, and Lake Huron were slow and traveling at wind speed. Fighter jets, even when slowed down, would still travel about 100 miles per hour faster. So it's understandable if pilots passing by cannot get a clear glimpse of an object the size of a small car, and that would explain the difficulty in identifying whatever these things have been. Secondly, because the objects were so small, tracking them on radar is challenging. The Pentagon has acknowledged as much, and that explains the Department of Defense statements about seeing the objects over Montana, then not seeing them and seeing them again. Also, unlike the China balloon, which was flying at a much higher altitude, these latest objects were at the same altitude as commercial jetliners and most air traffic, so they posed a more imminent safety threat. And that prompted the decision to shoot them down. The likelihood of collateral damage to people or buildings on the ground was also less than the China balloon because the devices were smaller than the China balloon, which was about 200 feet long and the size of 3 buses. Finally, the surveillance threat from the China balloon got neutralized by the United States military, which jammed the balloon's spying systems once it crossed into U.S. airspace. Well, what about the sudden appearance of so many UFOs? Well, NORAD says it adjusted, it recalibrated its radar effort after the China balloon to look for more of these types of objects. And the Department of Defense notes there are countless research atmospheric, privately owned communication balloons now showing up on NORAD radar. Most of them emit a radar identifying signal. But when something does not, either because of a malfunction or because it comes from a foreign country, the Biden administration has decided to decommission these objects. In other words, shoot them down. To be clear, I am a firm believer in UFOs and extraterrestrial life, and I am convinced that our planet has already been visited by beings from another galaxy. But the events of the past week, in my view, are not that. As I see it, we will eventually find out that these recent mystery objects were balloons, possibly from foreign governments spying on the United States, or a new class of drones, or something more benign like a corporate-owned data collection and transmission system that malfunctioned and stopped emitting identification signals. Sadly, we are not about to get a big revelation about ETs. However, it is fun to think about, and I'm sure we would learn a lot from more advanced civilizations. Of course, once they got a good look at our religions, wars, and countless problems, the ETs would probably say, let's get the F out of here. These human beings are crazy. But that's another video. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.